Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop Fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
The Raid 2 is over. Bring back the ball.
Nama saya Rama. Saya tahu siapa kamu. Abang saya bilang, saya bisa percaya Bapak. Abang lu nggak salah. Lu suka atau tidak suka dengan peristiwa hari ini, Reza dan anak buahnya akan ngincer lu. Mereka akan ngincer lu sampai ketemu. Kalau kita nggak cepat bertindak, lu bakal hilang. Keluarga lu juga. Sekarang ini kota dibagi rata. Antara tokoh kita bangun dan Koto Gumi keluarga Jepang. Uco, anaknya bangun, sekarang ada di penjara. Ini saat yang tepat buat lu masuk dan dekatin dia. Gue mau lu gabung sama tim gue. Lu bakal dilatih ulang sampai lu punya kemampuan yang lebih baik untuk membela kepentingan yang benar. Artinya, lu harus gue tangkap.
Okay, Andy, you're the Raid 2. We're doing it. This is the Raid 2. It's the second of the Raid series, as noted by the number 2. It also has the word Barandal at the end of it, if you're in certain places. And that, as I understand it, means thug in Indonesian. Am I right there? I think I'm close. But that's not how it was released here.
It was just released as the Raid 2, but I also have seen it as the Raid 2 Barandal. Like, I think the actual Blu-ray that I have has it written that way, even though when the film title pops up, it does not say that. So, yeah, it's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there was that whole element where when the first film was released, the American distributor required it to have that subtitle because they couldn't just get the rights to the Raid. And so they added
Redemption.
Gareth Evans talked about the fact that, that's I actually kind of like it because it means I can kind of like, as I make these sequels, I can kind of add another thing to it to kind of expand the universe. And so I suppose that's part of it. But I think also just, the Raid 2, I think that's fine too.
I also think it's fine.
I think it's fine.
Interesting thing about this movie, and you alluded to this last week before we dig into the movie proper, that this movie was Gareth Evans had already had the idea for this movie, and it was too big a script to actually get funded, and so it was rejiggered to become The Raid 2, a sequel to The Raid, which has it takes is rewritten to include our central protagonist and to rejigger a bit of the set of the story to actually create this new expanded Raid 2. In terms of doing that, we've talked about other movies that do that. Obviously, Cloverfield Paradox, God Particle, The Cellar. Were not originally written as Cloverfield movies, but were rejiggered. Die Hard 3, Die Hard with a Vengeance, was originally written as a different movie. There are lots of these movies out there that are scripts that are written to be standalone movies and get rejiggered to be put into series. Ocean's 12 was originally a different movie, not the sequel to Ocean's 11. They have similar themes, similar character structures, and are easy to kind of manipulate into the existing theme. My first question for you is, before we dig into the content of this movie, how well does that work here for you? Did you ever stop and question and think, oh, this doesn't feel like the Raid movie?
No, I never felt that. I felt it was a strong continuation of the story, and it felt natural based on how the first film ends and how we kind of set up this sense of a corrupt police system, and that's tied into the local mob circles. And I mean, that's essentially where we go with this. And so I didn't feel that it felt shoehorned in.
Yeah, me neither. To me, it felt effortless and just a very natural place to put our protagonist after the ending of the Raid. I thought it just felt like an easy move. Never questioned anything, apart from the fact that some of the characters that we got to know, like the dirty lieutenant who got walked out of the building, and the brother Andy, they make it into this movie, but not for very long.
Well, yeah, I mean, even Bogo, or is it Bogo, the one that he's with, or Bowo. He's, he's there at the start, and he just, as he leaves, he just tells Rama, just watch out for yourself or whatever. And that's the last we see of him too. Yeah. So it's like everybody is pretty much written out of it except for Rama and characters that we had heard alluded to last time that we had yet to meet. And so that's, like Reza is the one who we heard. He's the corrupt, head of the police who, they had talked about a little bit, and they mentioned in the last film, Bunawar. I think somebody tells him, talk to Bunawar. He's one that can be trusted inside the police. And so those two names we had heard, and now we finally meet them.
Yeah. So I thought it was an effortless, great setup for what ends up being an exhilarating film.
And it didn't sound like, though, that they had to change too much of the story. You know, I think it largely was the same story. I think the big shift was that they took a character who wasn't originally a cop, but who got into these circles. And they said, okay, well, what if he is this cop and he goes undercover? And basically then it's the same story. So, yeah, they didn't really have to do too much to it. But in a way, I feel like it actually made it stronger. I think the fact that he's a cop makes it a more interesting and more compelling story.
You're Gareth Evans, and you're saying, I just got the raid? What? Like, how lucky do I feel right now that I now have a way to get this movie made that if I can do this one right, then I can do this other movie that I really wanted. That feels like just a lucky break.
Yeah. Well, this movie was rated R when it came out here in the States for sequences of strong, bloody violence throughout sexuality and language.
Where was the sexuality?
When they were with those two prostitutes, and
yeah,
and Uko was threatening on beating them up.
Okay, all right. I guess there was some sexuality there. There was definitely some suggestive singing and screaming. All right, Andy. So I texted you immediately after I finished watching this for the first time, and I said this is a best-in-class movie of the genre. I was kind of blown away by how connected I felt to this movie, like just how it felt for being such a big, operatic, violent action martial arts movie. That they also were able to not even sneak in story that made it compelling and interesting, and I found curious to see what's going to happen next to all the twists and turns of the corrupt cop regime. I found the story ended up being downright rewarding. I think it's a great film.
What they do, we've talked about this a lot this particular season, since we have been looking at a lot of franchises and series of films, is the whole idea of leveling up. And what can you add to a particular story to kind of expand it so it doesn't necessarily feel like it's just more of the same. You know, we certainly had that struggle when we were looking at the Pitch Perfect films, and but talking about how other stories in our season had actually done that, and going all the way back to James Cameron, who had said that when he was making Aliens, and what can I do to level up? How can I expand this so I'm not just doing a rehash of the first film, and that's what I think was interesting, and I think Evans very smartly latched onto that original script and found a way to kind of tie these together, because it's not just a film about, police raiding a building, which worked in the first film. It was very effective. And even though we have the title The Raid, still in context of this film, I mean, it does end up being like this police, this undercover cop who is trying to infiltrate this, all of this corrupt wheelings and dealings going on between these two gangs and the police and everything. And so it really kind of changes the story, and it expands it in an incredible way. And so I really enjoy the characters. I enjoy the shape that the story takes, and it gives us a chance to look at so much more going on outside of that building, which set up the world. But this really takes a chance to open those doors so we can see so much of all of the other things that kind of led to that particular situation where that building was kind of run by these criminals.
Right. And it doesn't make us live in, I thought it was interesting, it doesn't make us live in so much the we're going for the big boss thug kind of video game structure, right? It introduces and allows us to explore more complexity in the relationships of the police and the gangs that operate in the community in a way that feels very, very natural to me. And it puts us in an interesting, just as an audience member, it puts us in an interesting sort of ethical predicament right away, that our principal character, our protagonist, Rama, brings the dirty lieutenant that we spent time with in the last movie out and sets him in a room with Bunawar and Bunawar's cops, this who is the head of this internal unit, and shoots the lieutenant in the face many, many times and kills him, right? And he's doing that under the auspices of being able to protect Rama, saying, I can't protect him if this guy lives, or can't protect you and your family if this guy lives. So I'm doing a good deed. But that immediately sets the tone for the movie that good people, presumably good people, people who we're set up to be able to trust, will do bad things. Therefore, the entire universe is, from our perspective, a bit unreliable. And puts you back on your heels a little bit. And that was my experience with it, that I immediately was able to call certain shots where Rama is, where he is sent undercover to prison, and he's told, you'll be there for a couple months to do this thing undercover. And my first thought was, yeah, you're not getting out for years. And it wasn't out for years. Those kinds of things I was able to see around the corner. But there were many other twists that I felt like I didn't see that coming. I enjoyed the fact that the movie was still able to kind of play with me in the relationships once we get into the gangs.
Well, and, I think that it's interesting because right out of the gate, like I said, we had been told in the last film, oh, you can trust Bunawar. He is the one good cop there, and he's the one who you can rely on. And then he goes and talks to Bunawar, and Bunawar immediately kills this guy. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And even Rama's like, I brought him in so he could serve his time and pay for his crimes and everything. And Bunawar's perspective is like, if you did that, he probably would have gotten out or killed, but then they would have your information too. And so I'm just doing this to protect you. And so you instantly get a sense of, like, even in levels of doing things that are right, they're still doing things that not necessarily by the books, because otherwise it's not going to get done. And that was really interesting. And then, he tells him, I'm doing this to protect you and to save you and your family. And then his brother dies, and Bunawar then is telling him, look, I can only protect your wife and your kid. I can't protect you anymore, which I was like, well, okay, I'm not exactly sure how that works. But still, this is a potentially kind of corrupt, like the means justify the ends sort of cop who says, I can't protect you. You have to help me. Otherwise, I can't guarantee your safety. They'll always be over your shoulder. And so it's kind of almost like he forces Rama's hand to become this guy who does help them. And I thought that was really interesting. And even like through the whole thing, once we get to the end, how we never really get complete closure between Rama and Bunawar, but we kind of get a sense of Rama's position on all that with his last line in the film, which I thought was really strong. And so I love the way that you get this sense of things. Oh, and then also, like, when we're talking when Rama is talking to Eka, who he learns is also an undercover cop, as Eka is dying. And Eka is like, I don't want people to think that I was a criminal. I want them to know that I was doing this for the good guys and all this sort of stuff. And then when Rama talks to Bunawar about that, Bunawar is just like, oh, he turned. He wasn't, he led to the death of all these other cops and stuff. And so it's like, where is the line for good and bad here? And I don't know. I found the way that it was portrayed with all of that, like, even the good guys, other than Rama, seemed to all be just shades of it.
Well, that's a really good point, especially you talk about that last line, that last sequence where the Japanese gang is now in. This is after Rama has completely decimated the crime syndicate, right, in that building. We'll talk more about that. But he walks down, he's exhausted, he's beaten, he's bloody, he's had the final fight. The Japanese gang shows up and we don't hear what they're saying, right? It goes into foggy Peanuts land, and we don't hear those words, which I thought was an interesting choice, because we don't hear what this gang member is saying to him, the son of Goto. But he's saying something. Then Rama just says, no, I'm done, right? I'm finished with whatever this is. Well, isn't that his admission that he's no longer, that somewhere between the beginning of the movie and the end of the movie, he became less of a cop, right? Because if he was a cop, he wouldn't be finished, because the Japanese gang members they're there to do bad stuff too, right? Like what so I think that's a really interesting like character arc that puts him in a very interesting position at the end, at least for me in my head, to wonder, is he going to report to the office at 8:00 on Monday morning? Right? Or is he really done with everything?
Yeah, I found that to be an interesting way that we have things end with the film. And I mean, we're jumping all over the place. Now we're talking just about the end of the film, but still,
yeah,
the way that we had kind of seen his reactions with Bunawar over the course of the film, like you had this sense that Bunawar had very specific ways to do things. And I mean, he had a wire on him as soon, like day one when he got out of prison. And, Rama was smart enough to remove that so that he didn't get it discovered and lead to his murder right there. But there still is this sense that he doesn't completely trust Bunawar. He seemed to really respect Eka and found something with that character that that he kind of bought into. And I kind of felt like it was that final conversation that he had with Bunawar, where Bunawar told him that, Eka was a traitor to the force and all this sort of stuff, where, I don't know, it was a sense, maybe it's just for Rama, it's like, I just don't even know who to believe anymore. You seem as corrupt as anyone else. Eka could have been corrupt, but I liked him. And it all kind of came to this point at the end where he's just like, I don't like, because he tells, I don't know, the look on Goto's son's face at the end tells me that they're very obviously very pleased with the work that Rama has done, essentially like single-handedly taking down their enemies, so they don't have to do any heavy lifting. Right. And probably said, right, hey, why don't you come work for us? We'd love to have you. And I don't know, that was just kind of my sense of it, because he was smiling and he seemed to be pretty pleased with all of the stuff that he sees here. And then he says, no, I'm finished. And so my sense is that he is just completely done. I mean, he's been gone from his wife for 2+ years, and he wants to get back to the normal life. And so I don't know, that was kind of my read on it. But I like how it is kind of left ambiguous. Like, you never see Bunawar arrive. You see him and the troops driving there, but they never get there. And so we're kind of left on that shot of Rama as he says, I'm finished. And that's the end. And it's just like, wow, okay, this is a person who's gone through hell and is now through it and refuses to go back. Which,
I think is really artfully done for his arc. And I actually like the way so many elements in the movie are moving. They're moving pieces that we don't always get to see. Like, I feel like it would be interesting to go back and look at a movie that focused on a different, like, that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern the film and just focused on Eka. Like, how did Eka get there, and how did he become this particular character? And we know he crosses paths with Rama multiple times, but it means more the second time you watch the movie when when Eka says, I know where you come from. Right? Because he really does probably know exactly where he comes from, right? He probably has a much better sense than Rama thinks he does for that relationship. So I think that was really interesting.
Well, and it reminded me a lot of kind of the Infernal Affairs, The Departed, like that story, where you also find out that there were other undercover cops also tied in that you didn't necessarily realize were undercover until that point when they're all kind of close to death. And that seems to be kind of the trope in a movie where you reveal that you are undercover as you're about to die, because at that point it's like, well, why does it matter anymore?
Yeah.
But I did, it made me think of that. And, it's interesting because we definitely develop his relationship with Eka less than we do with the son, Uko. But it's interesting to see kind of like how these relationships develop, because Eka seemed very much the right-hand man to Uko's father, and Uko was kind of like the hot-headed son, and a lot of the stuff in the story does feel kind of tropey the way that it's put together. I guess one of the reasons that I find it so interesting and compelling is that they're clearly just having they've found a fun way to craft it, and I really enjoy the characters and kind of the complex levels that we're going as far as you've got Uko upset that his dad is not, acting very strong, even though he is. Like, as we kind of, I don't know, my sense of Bangun was that he was actually very smart in his dealings with Goto and his men, as far as like the way he would back down from certain situations and stuff. It seemed like, he's the smart one who's trying to make this thing last. And Uko is this hothead who kind of has Bejo whispering in his ear. And Bejo, who we meet at the very beginning of the film as the person who kills Andy, seems like a person who's trying to seed discord between these different groups so that he can kind of move to the head. And as we learn, he is meeting with Reza and plotting to kind of take over all of this stuff. And so, I don't know, I found it to be a very compelling story. And I enjoyed the way Evans crafted it with these characters, even if they do feel tropey for the type of film to a certain extent.
The first scene, we have Eka and Uko talking to each other, and I can already tell that the names are going to twist me up over the course of the next several scenes we talk about. But the first scene, we have them talking together. They are in the visitation cell at the prison, and Uko is telling Eka, your job is to protect me in here, as if Eka is some sort of conciliary for his dad, right? He's some sort of, maybe he's an attorney, or he's a fixer, which I think is really great. Like, when you go back and watch this, as knowing that he is somehow undercover, has been placed there, like he must be very, very deep cover, right? Somebody very long term as an asset to both the police and this organization. But then he looks over and says, and Uko says, you want to help me? Find out about that guy, and points to Rama. And Eka looks knowingly and says, oh, that guy? He wheelchaired the politician's son, right?
Who had gotten Uko in prison, right? Yeah.
For a movie that is so exuberant and so celebratory in its violence, we never actually see the wheelchairing. Did you think that was interesting at all? Like, we never see what got Rama into prison in the first place. I thought that was a really interesting choice that actually it makes for a very efficient storytelling tool to just get us into prison. We see the blowback of that, right, in that big, fantastically shot bathroom fight, but we never see what actually lands him there.
Well, we do. We see photos. There are photos of him on the desk of the warden that we kind of get a sense as to what had happened when he's first brought there.
But photos are not an action scene.
But it wasn't necessary. Like, for me, that was not. Like, that's all I needed. We just had to get him in somehow. That would have just been, I think, something that would have slowed the actual plot down, because that just gets him there and gets him on Uko's side. And so for me, that never felt like something that needed to be seen.
No, I agree with you. I'm calling it a smart choice. Like, I'm not. This isn't
it seemed like you were complaining about, like, you wanted to see it.
I think it's really smart, and I think it's for a movie that like shows all kinds of other violence, to leave this out actually makes for a really interesting and smart narrative choice to actually just put him in prison. We know the setup, we know how he's supposed to get in prison, and then he gets in prison, and I think that's really great. I also really enjoy that blowback scene so much. That the first major fight scene comes in the form of that solid gray. Everybody's wearing gray. They're all in a gray kind of space. Very threatening setup with them all banging on the stall door. It sets him up as a wonderful tough guy with his, they really glorify and showing his fists flexing and moving so slowly, even though we know so much violence is going on outside, ready to just put him into it, thrust him into the fight. I thought it was just really great bit of action storytelling.
Well, it's not just that. And, I think this speaks to Evans as the real craftsman behind this film, because he also not only wrote and directed it, but also edited it. And the way that the entirety of the film begins, like once we kind of get through that opening with Bejo killing Andy, we cut into the bathroom and we see Rama sitting in the stall. We don't have any context. We just see him sitting in the stall and we see, the door is being pounded on. And then we're jumping like all through time as we're kind of getting all of these different pieces to get a sense as to what's happening, right? We're cutting from that to him talking to cop or to Bunawar and that whole setup. And then we're seeing the funeral for his brother when because initially he turns Bunawar down, and then we see the funeral, and then we see him in the car, and then we kind of keep cutting back into that bathroom, and we don't really have any context for what's happening here. So that whole open is designed in a way where we're kind of jumping through time and space, getting these bits and pieces to set us up for that first big action sequence when he's confronting all of these people who are clearly on the side of that politician and his son and have been paid to kind of take this person down. So the way that all of that is crafted is just such efficient storytelling, and it makes for an opening that, for me, like when I watch it and I see how Evans cuts all this together, it moves us into that story and into the prison where that's where he needs to get as quickly as possible in context of the story, so that he can meet Uko and get the rest of the story going. So the way that Evans crafted that, I found exhilarating.
Well, and it's not a short movie, right? It's 2.5 hours. And it feels to me like it still moves very, very quickly. Like I didn't have any problem feeling this movie slows down. It's too long for its story, but making that choice to take us to jump around through time is really efficient at telling us a bunch of different stories, a bunch of different threads at the same time before we get into the first big fight. The second big fight, can we talk about principal action sequences? Because that second big fight is the mud fight.
Yeah.
Which is dozens and dozens and dozens of guys. The setup is, there's an assassination attempt, and Rama stops the assassination attempt with a well-placed broom handle. But it ends up in this massive, massive brawl on the incredibly violent brawl in the grounds of the muddy, rainy, kind of central quad area of the prison.
It happens to be a very, very, very rainy day, and turns into a giant mud fest as the brawl moves out into the mud. And there were some really exciting one-ers over the course of a lot of the action sequences, including this one, where you have the camera really kind of dancing and moving around, following person to person and jumping. They weren't incredibly long, but in context of an action sequence, they were. And I think the longest one was about 50 seconds during this particular fight. But that's a long time, because you're following a couple people fighting, and then you're moving to this other group, and then you're following two guys trying to scale the fence, and then they get shot and they fall back down. And like the way the whole thing's crafted, it's exhilarating.
The last movie in the raid, we talked about just how visceral the fighting was, and how these guys were taking blows, right? They were really fine. And I didn't read anything about in the first movie about them talking about how they actually performed the fights. It was able stunt actors and martial arts specialists doing some amazing things. In reading up on this movie, Gareth Evans says, you have to remember that these guys trained for 18 months how to hit each other and pull their punches and kicks at the very last second, so they wouldn't actually damage one another, because every hit is connecting. Like every single hit is connecting. We don't do any camera behind you so you can't see that the actual swing is 12 inches from somebody's face. Like everything is connecting. And I think this movie, even more than the last, is such an incredible celebrant of people hitting each other for real, doing it in a way that is just gruesome and fantastic. This scene is a great example of it, because of just the proximity that the camera gets in the fights. I don't know how they do it without ending up in every single shot covered in mud. It's just so splashy. They
shot that for 10 days, and there were 120 extras in it. And it was crazy the way that they put all that together, and the complexities of it. They said it was just miserable, but it ends up. It really is. It's fantastic, and it's beautiful in the muddiness. The way that they kind of designed this thing to look so just it's such a mess, and I don't know. I found it to be a thrill, because it's all these prisoners, and then the guards come in, and then everyone's fighting the guards too, And then more guards come in, and it was just kind of this ever expansion of kind of adding more to it and building on top of it over and over again. I really enjoyed the way that they kept leveling it. Just in the fight itself, they kept leveling it up.
Well, and the palette is incredible, too. It is like everything is, again, that sort of gray brown of the mud, and the sky is weirdly the same color as the mud. But what breaks the two apart is this red building and of the prison that's all around them. And so you end up in this space where all of the ground level shots make every character look incredible because they're backed by this beautiful red, like deep red color. And then he walks out of the prison, and my favorite shot, his first shot when he comes through the door, is this overhead shot looking down. And it takes a second to figure out what our angle is because the building is along the bottom of the frame, because we're on top of the building looking down the side of the building with just a giant, once again, gray palette of concrete that we're looking at, from our perspective head on. And he uses this palette to tell us in no uncertain terms that 2 years have passed with a very large 2 years later that goes across the entire screen, which I think is so cool as the little tiny bodies walk out of the door that's right below us, frame center. I think it's so beautiful, just so well shot and well thought of, and well conceived. Camera work.
There was a lot of shots in this film, more so than the previous one, that they wanted to get up really high and look down. In fact, the film starts when with the assassination of Andy over an incredibly beautiful. I don't know if it's a farm and crops or if it's just a field. I'm not exactly sure what that greenery is, but it's just beautiful, lush green with these little dirt roads cutting through it. It's just a stunning vista. And then suddenly we see some cars drive into it. We see something down below. What is that on the road? And then as we get closer, we're like, oh, they're holes, or it's a big hole that's been dug here for a body. But he does that a number of times throughout this film to really kind of contextualize the space where these people are in. And I don't know, I found it to be interesting because it happens a number of times throughout the film that in some big action scenes where it kind of, in a way, while the action is so big, so bloody, so visceral, when we step back so far as these action moments are happening, you kind of realize how small all of this still is in context of kind of the scope of everything that's going on.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I was looking at cinemetrics for the film. And yeah, that scene definitely has it's the second longest shot in the film, which is 50 seconds, like I said. And I can't remember which fight we're looking at the right at the middle of the film, but that has the actual longest shot in the film, which is 56.8 seconds.
Wasn't that the car? The car shot?
That's toward the that's a little closer to the end. I think that one's 33.4 seconds. So I'm not exactly sure what's right in the middle of the film.
Patsuko, it was you.
Oh, of course, right? Yeah,
yeah. That
Yayan.
was the restaurant.
Yayan Rehuyan's action film,
yeah.
Or the scene in the restaurant.
So good.
That was.
It might be the scene at the end of that in the alley with the snow.
I think it's all.
You think it's in the.
My recollection, I could be wrong, but when he's fighting inside the restaurant, it's a oneer as he's jumping up on the different, the landings and stuff and jumping down. And it might, because then all of a sudden it cuts to that side door as he bursts out. Yeah. I think it actually starts. It's likely inside.
So I'm at 124.
125.35 is where it starts.
Well, that's in the office. I'm clearly in the wrong place. There must be some sort of front matter that isn't counting, because this is the family talking. The dad upset at his son.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, but anyway, it's probably that scene. It's thrilling the way that they cry. And speaking to, we had a pre-show chat before this about kind of violence in film and the choreography and the operatic elements that can go into violence. That's something for our members. If you're interested, you can learn more at thenextreel.com/membership if you would like to get those additional parts of each of these episodes. But yeah, we talked about kind of that operatic way that you have it. And when you have the sort of stunt choreography that you have in this, it kind of, I don't know, it becomes something else. It's no longer just kind of a fight scene. There's this kind of beauty to it in all of its gore, but it's kind of stunning to watch as Yayan. And this is him coming back, not playing Mad Dog, but playing a different character. He's playing Prakoso here. And, it's just stunning watching him fight in the film the way he does.
Well, it is. It's a smaller part, and yet I think he's given so much more because they actually give him the scene with his ex-wife.
Yeah.
I mean, the way they age him could, they could be making the case that they could have made the case that it's his daughter. I think it's pretty clear that it's his ex-wife, but he is, I think that was really generous for his character to give him an actual character and not just make him, a thug. The fact that they give him a chance to talk to Uko about, being patient and knowing that, when he's ready, he'll be able to, take over for his dad, but just be patient and then to give him such an extraordinary fight scene.
Well, that follows, like, Uko hears all of that, knowing he's walking out of the room and letting all of these assassins in to take him down. Like that's his intention with that entire scene. And here he is having this conversation about, the importance of being patient and you're going to be a great leader and all this sort of stuff, only to be brought down by him. And like when he is in the alley and he looks back to the door and he sees Uko look out, and it's just like all the pieces are in. I mean, I think he already knew once he pulled out the picture of his son in that restaurant. Is basically when Uko said, "I have to go to the bathroom." I think that's when Prakoso realized something was up, and is really that whole scene. The way it plays is wild.
I think it's such an interesting kind of setup for that scene, and it feels like that one feels particularly. I don't know. It's a little bit manga, right? A little bit sort of heightened comic sequence for me, because not only does Uko leave, but what we don't see while Prakoso's head is down is that the entire club has cleared out. Like the music is everything's empty now. And when he comes back up, the thugs enter in their suits. And that I thought was a really interesting treatment because it once again highlights that we're not in the real world. This is a heightened fantasy world where things like this can happen, and our principal character in a given scene might not notice. Meanwhile, as he's being attacked, like the baseball bat man and Hammer Girl are going to town on other thugs in different locations.
Well, this is kind of that point in the film where Rama has had Bejo like, we're going to move forward with all this. And you see the assassin. And this is another moment where Evans is using some interesting editing, because you have this, I don't know, celebration of some sort, like a parade going on. You cut to like grass, like you're in a big field, and we're not exactly sure why. And then you're following, the baseball bat man as he's dragging his baseball bat, down a sidewalk, and you're cutting to Hammer Girl on a train, and you're intercutting in a very interesting way between all these different stories, getting a sense of really Bejo taking everybody down. And it was interesting because this is kind of Uko's part in the whole thing is dealing with Prakoso. So watching each of these different stories, we don't see as much of the assassin here. We just kind of like suddenly we're in the grass and we see blood splatter on it, and he's now dealing with this person in the grass. But then Hammer Girl on the train and Baseball Batman, the meeting of the two guys in the back room.
Well, and then he's in the in that big warehouse where he actually not only he's just finished his own little parade of devastation with his baseball bat, but then he actually pulls the balls out of his pocket and uses them to he hits them with the bat and actually kills a guy on the other end of the warehouse. It's extraordinarily fun, like really, really a fun way to demonstrate his capability.
Yeah, and Hammer Girl, like watching her go to town with those hammers on the I guess that guy's security detail on the train. like it's horrific the way that you get to see hammers utilized.
She does a lot with the claw of the hammers.
With
a
the
lot
claw.
of claw work.
Yeah, some gruesome stuff. But she's fantastic. Watching Julie Estelle play that character and just leaping around inside a train as she's going to town on those people. I mean, it's exhilarating, like all of that action with them, and it's interesting to see kind of how they end up getting utilized throughout the film.
For sure. So these is also our big introduction, really, to these three characters: the assassin, Hammer Girl, and Baseball Batman, and they become. They essentially take on the role of Mad Dog and Andy and the Big Boss, that we had in the raid. But we're introduced to them late in the film, which I thought was, again, really interesting, that they are not the principal nemeses of Rama going through the film, which, I think is to its credit, that it is such an expansive universe in this film that it takes us, what I'm looking at it right now, it's an hour and 35 minutes into the movie before Hammer Girl is assassinating her businessman on the train, and Baseball Bat Boy says, "Give me the ball." Like that's great patience for introducing some of our most fun villains.
Yeah, no, it is.
And I love the act of insolence that the guy, he says, "Give me the ball," and his target takes the ball and throws it out the door. Why are you doing that? It's just going to make him mad.
I would, if somebody's hitting balls at me, I'm not giving him a ball.
But he still has a bat.
I know. But still, it's like, I don't know.
And that transitions us to the great chase that Rama gets into. He gets into the cab, and we see the thugs running from a great distance at the cab from the perspective of the passenger seat next to the cab driver. It is great way to set up this particular chase that begins. I think it's wonderful.
Well, the chase, this is an interesting one because the car chase itself is not very big. It's a very short car chase, but it's kind of fun to see as he kind of bends down and hits the gas just to get away from the group and then has to get out. And then it turns into this restaurant battle where, it's just gruesome, the stuff that happens, particularly when he holds the guy's head on the hot stove and just kind of burns him horribly. And that's an interesting twist because then as he's done and he's defeated all of them, the guy on the stove is the last one. He sees that the guy has a police badge and realizes that this group that he had just been fighting were all cops. And that was an interesting twist because now you're like, whoa, okay, so this is a cop and he just took down a whole group of police officers. Where is that going to put him in the eyes of Bunawar? And as we find out, according to Bunawar, these were all actually corrupt cops, and they had actually been hired by Reza to take him out because he is. Although I guess that was something that kind of confused me. Like I wasn't sure why Reza would want to take him out because he, for all intents and purposes, was on Uko's team, and Uko was on, had joined up with Bejo and Reza. So I wasn't exactly sure why they were taking him out. Did you have any sense on that?
No, I felt like it was. No, I actually didn't. Now that you bring up that question, it never crossed my mind. I thought they were Reza's thuggy team, and that was enough.
Well, it could be. It's an interesting thing because Uko, it seems like once he kind of teams up with Bejo, is kind of trying to figure out who is going to be safe for me to stay working with. That seems to be why he's meeting with Procoso. Getting a read from him, hey, if you join me, then we can take down my dad and we can rule together. Or, you can be by my side instead of by his side. It seems there's a little bit of that, but he never has that meeting with Rama. That's an interesting element that Rama, I guess I just am not exactly sure how to read the view of the relationship between Uko and Rama from Bejo and everyone else, because on Uko's dad Bangun seems to view, along with Eka, his right hand guy, the other undercover cop, they seem to view Rama as Uko's I don't want to say caretaker, but his shadow, who kind of helps take care of Uko and get him out of trouble when he gets in trouble. Bangun is always telling him, please keep an eye on my son and let me know if he's doing anything stupid. That's kind of Dad's intention with Rama. And so I don't know, maybe these other people view him as more in the hands of Bangun and Eka than they do with Uko.
It's interesting that you say it that way, because this whole thing could have changed very dramatically had Prakoso actually stood up and gone to the bathroom with in their conversation in the restaurant. Like that was sort of a choose your own adventure path that he could have said, you're right, maybe let's go do some stuff together. And this whole thing could have, it was a choice, is what I'm saying. Like
for Prakoso,
For Prakoso, yeah.
I mean, it seems like Uko seems to be kind of giving everybody choices. Like even his dad, he essentially does all of this. Like he sets up all of these murders to get his dad to, go to war against Goto. But his dad is like, no, somebody on my side clearly is making bad decisions. I am fully at fault and I will take care of it. And like, that's Bangun's position on all of this. And so it's interesting, like Uko seems to be really doing what he can with Bejo to rise to the top, even though his dad doesn't seem like his dad. It's the old thing. He's older, he's wiser, he views things in much longer terms, and Uko seems to just want to get there faster. And he's younger, more hot-headed. So it's interesting, kind of like all the inner workings of all this. I still just struggle with Rama and his position in all this, because I mean, even like, why would Reza choose to assassinate Rama? And because then Rama comes over because Eka called and said, hey, you need to come get Uko out of here. Because at that point, Dad was just beating up Uko. But without realizing that Bejo and his team were about to show up. And that's where they show up. And that's where Uko kills his dad. And Rama comes in and only fights them because he has no context. And he just sees dead dad, bad guys. I'm going to take them out and protect the team that I'm with. And they don't choose Rama. Like, that's a point where once the assassin manages to knock Rama out, Uko doesn't say to kill him. And so they say, let's keep him and let's take him. And so I guess it makes sense that, I don't know. Again, I guess I'm not really sure. Like, does Uko want to keep Rama alive? Because Bejo clearly doesn't plan on that. Like, he takes him out of there in a car, though, where it seems like he's taking him to be assassinated. And that's, the whole chase scene where Eka saves him.
That's an interesting question, because it feels like there's a connection between the police and one of the gangs that is not clear to me yet.
I mean, it could just be that Bejo views Uko as the only person who he can really partner with in all this, and everybody else on Uko's periphery has to go in order to just start with a clean slate. So even if Rama largely is Uko's friend, he's somebody who they just have to get rid of, even if it's not going to be in front of Uko, just to move forward with less baggage. Like, maybe that's just the way to read this, is like, we've got to clear out everybody except for Uko, and then we can move forward. Because, I mean, they're killing Prakoso, they kill Dad, they're trying to kill Rama, they're killing Eka. Like, all of these people, I think they must view as just part of Bangun's tribe, and you've got to, Uko's the only one who's signed on.
Well, I think all of it is just to get the war started, right, between Goto and Bangun. And that's why Prakoso was on the list, because he is so close to Bangun. But we already know from even earlier in the movie, before they have their formal sit-down, that Goto and Bangun are already kind of colleagues, right? They're having a meeting together and talking about, hey, do you know this Beja guy? We should probably keep an eye out for him. Like, they already work together. So they're, I think, trying to set up this universe in which these two guys are going to go to war with each other, and that's harder than anybody anticipates. So Beja is like estimates the relationship between the professional relationship between the two, and thinks he can, sort of poke the dragon and get them to go to war so that he can have all of their assets, in cleaning up the mess. And that turns out to be impossible. So he just starts killing everybody.
Well, but he does have Reza on his side. That's an interesting scene when Reza is meeting Bejo and Uko toward the end of the film, and has that line who he said, they're like, we're going to work together. And he's like, well, let's see, if I'm still here after dinner, then you offered me the right amount of money.
Right.
And that's kind of his position. And so it's an interesting one, because they clearly acknowledge that we have to keep the cops in this, and Reza is our window to controlling the cops.
Yes.
But we are going to take out Godo and get rid of this Japanese crime family that's also here.
Right.
Yeah, so I guess Rama's he's just a side.
Yeah.
He's another character on Bangun's troop who just has to go because he represents Bangun more than he does Uko.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
That's enough. That's kind of enough for me, that he's just in the way according to Beja, so everybody's going to go.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because at some point, when Uko's allegiance, because Uko, initially likes Rama a lot. And at some point, that relationship, deteriorates to the point where Uko has chosen Beja and is okay letting everything else fall apart.
Well, I think that's that point. I think when Rama, and we should say his code name in this is Yuda through all of this, which actually is a nod to his character in Gareth Evans' first film that they did together. But we're just calling him Rama because there's already so many names. But I think that when he comes in to the office and Uko has killed his dad and Bejo has shot, no, I guess Uko shot Eka, and Bejo was about to, Bejo was about to kill Eka, and that's when Rama comes in and stops Bejo, gets Eka on the way, and then tries to stop what's going on, and then the assassin knocks him out. And that's a point where Uko could have said, let's just kill him. But I think this is where he still has that friendship and the allegiance to him. He doesn't say, just kill him. He basically doesn't say anything. And so that's why Bejo is just like, okay, let's just take him. And, we'll kill him somewhere else because we don't want to, turn Uko or give him too much to think about. And so it seems like they're still in a line where they're trying to figure out how to control him. And I really think the only thing that happens at the end of the film that really sets Uko against Rama is the fact that Rama is there, fighting everybody. And I think by that point, when Uko finds the wire in his wallet, and then he sees the tattoo, the same tattoo on Bejo that was on the prison guy that had tried to kill him. So he knows Bejo tried to kill him in prison.
Yes.
And so he just kind of like, screw it, I'm just killing everybody. Like, I'm going to try to come out on this on top.
Well, that was a thing that I thought was actually kind of confusing, is that when he finds the tracker, he doesn't assume, my understanding is he doesn't assume it was Rama.
No.
So why does he start, that was the thing. Why does he then start shooting at Rama? Just because Rama was fighting Beja's men in the office?
I think that he starts shooting at everybody. I think he's at a point where he's just like, everybody is against me. And I think that he's crossed a line. It's kind of like his dad, I suppose, where his dad, when he first brings Rama into his office, he tells him to take off his clothes. We're going to check you and make sure you're clean.
Yeah.
And he tells him, it's not that I don't trust you. It's that I don't trust anybody. And I felt like that point at the end when he finds the wire in his wallet, I don't think at that point he has any clue who put that there. But I think this is that, learn and grow wiser with experience where he's just like, I don't know who to trust anymore. I'm just going to kill everybody. And that was my sense, is he's just like, at that point, he'll take them all down.
Well, and that car chase is central too, because he knows that he has to know that Rama has escaped, whether he knows it was with Eka or not. Like I don't think he has any visibility of that. Right,
because Bejo's men come in and say that guy escaped. Well, but they say, well, go find him. He's like, well, he's actually here.
Yeah, he's working his way up.
Yeah, he's on his way up to see you. He's like, well, go ahead and stop him then. No, that was actually really funny.
The most unintentionally, I think, comedic line in the movie is right after Eka gets shot in the knee by Bejo. And Rama runs in, starts fighting, and turns to Eka and says, "Eka, run!" I laughed out loud.
Hobble! I know.
Right?
It was quite funny.
I'm sure there's something lost in translation.
Yeah. But that is one of the other key action sequences in the film, that escape scene, because you have Rama, taken by, knocked out by the assassin. Bejo tells his men, okay, just take him. They load him up into the car, and then we see that Eka is actually in the parking garage and follows them as they leave, which leads us to this chase as Eka is now trying to save Rama.
And the phone rings.
And the phone rings because Eka calls Rama.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then...
And the thug sees that Eka is... It's really that, that Rama has Eka in his contacts because the name shows up. Like there is some sort of awareness that this thug now has.
Yeah. And so now we go into this car chase, which is an exhilarating car chase as Rama is fighting these 4 guards in the car. Eka is chasing him. You've got other cars chasing Eka, trying to stop him, a motorbike also trying to stop him. And just an exhilarating, well choreographed, action sequence on wheels. How did the car chase play for you?
So good, and it's so beautifully shot. And they do the thing where they're passing the camera in and out of the car windows, and it's just extraordinary. And I just felt like I was in the car, so going so fast with these guys. I love the way they show stuff happening outside the car, like that first shot where we have the shots in the middle of the car. It's like on the center console, wide lens showing all 3 of the passengers in the back seat with Rama in the middle, unconscious, as his head comes up. And you see Eka in the car behind him about to smash into the car. Like that is extraordinary choice to actually give us a sense of impending doom, leading to just great driving and smashing and so many cars. I just thought it was great. I thought it was really great.
Did you watch the behind the scenes where it shows the guy dressed like a car seat?
Yeah, right.
That is one of my favorite things. I made my daughter come watch, and she's like, "Wow, that was really well choreographed." And I said, "Well, let's watch the behind the scenes. I want you to see how they did it." And when you see that again, they're using that the fig rig.
Yeah, the fig rig.
And they're on that little kind of cart, kind of moving down from car to car, and they pass the fig rig in through the window to show Eka driving, and it's a person dressed like the passenger seat. Who takes the camera, films him, and then leans across and out the opposite back window and gives it to somebody who's laying on a track that's attached to the side of the car, who grabs it and holds it so they can film the truck pull up with the shotgun. I mean, the way that Evans puts this stuff together, it's just mind-boggling, and it's so fun. And the last thing I ever expected to see was a camera operator dressed like a chair to work the camera. It made me laugh so hard. But it's just that leads to these exhilarating, well choreographed action sequences, and that's what I love so much about the film, and just the way that Evans puts it together is like he's really working to kind of think in ways that I think are a little more unique.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. Disguised as a passenger seat.
And obviously, the world of smaller cameras and these digital cameras that filmmakers get to use now, obviously that has really helped. And, I don't think you could have done an action sequence quite so complex back when you were using big 35 millimeter cameras. And so I think the smaller cameras has really helped action filmmakers do a lot more really unique things.
And they're multiple red, all shot on red, multiple red cameras being tossed around.
Reds, and then they also
GoPro
used
3s.
GoPro for some of the quick shots in the action sequences, and I know there's another one, I can't remember what it was, but yeah, very, very cool.
Very cool.
Well, and then from that point, as Rama is out of that car situation and has the conversation with Eka, leaving Eka kind of to die in this little chair in these ruins, which is just kind of such a tragic, sad moment. But then you get that phone call to Bunawar, and he tells him basically, like, it's good to know that you're on your way, but I'm going to go stop them anyway. And you get that as you cut to him in the car, and that leads us to our final action sequences. He drives his car into the villain's lair, basically, starts fighting on the ground floor, and then works his way up. And we get all of the stuff downstairs fighting those guys, throwing shelves on them, and just all the stuff that he does. And then moving upstairs to where now he has to fight all of the next level guys. So now he's fighting Baseball Batman and Hammer Girl. and then he's taking on the assassin, and then he's finally getting into the room to take on Bejo and Reza and Uko. And thoughts on all of this final action sequence from you?
Well, I love the final action sequence that it actually takes us back to the raid, right? He's working his way up a building, and I think that's really fun. The fact that it leads us to, he's able to dispose of Hammer Girl and Baseball Batman, and then they go to the kitchen, and the kitchen is where stuff happens. And although one of the greatest Baseball Man hits is in this hallway scene where he places the baseball bat in the mouth of the guy and it sticks there, and that's rough. I mean, that's a rough shot. If you're squeamish, that's tough.
That is tough. And you see, like, Hammer Girl, we know that she's deaf, and you see she gets her glasses knocked off, and you see she also is missing an eye. So, I mean, fighting like that is pretty interesting. But
dangerous.
Yeah, but like watching the two of them battle him, and the interesting thing about Rama is he is the one figure who is making his way all the way up, and he has been pummeled time and time again by a lot of these people. I mean, he's been hit by the hammers, he's been hit by the bats. He still makes it into the kitchen, and I like how I think this is probably my favorite scene in the film when he takes on the assassin. This is Sesep Arif Rahman, who is another very well-trained Pencak Silat fighter and trainer, and he's one of the three who ends up in The Force Awakens also, which is kind of fun to see. And we'll certainly talk about a number of these guys back when we get to the John Wick films. But the way that this scene plays, it gets quiet. All of the cooks in the kitchen, they all stop. And at first you're like, are they all going to attack? Like, what's the level of training with all of these people? But I love how it's just a quiet filing out of all of them. And then you have this fight that starts between Rama and the assassin that feels very, very much in line with the actual martial arts, like the way they position themselves and attack. And then they reposition themselves and attack. And it developed so beautifully as a fight of these two really just trying to see who was best, until the assassin then decides to pull out his knives and I guess it's called a karambit, that type of knife that's often used in this martial arts, this specific style. It was really just kind of a stunning fight to watch.
Well, I think the that final scene, I mean, it's like 198 cuts, like it's extraordinary, and it's actually, I mean, it's a long martial arts fight before those knives come out, and they're throwing pots and pans at each other, and they're going to town. It's a dramatic and brutal, like, fisticuffs sequence before they even get to he even pulls out the knives, and I think that's just outstanding, especially because it's also a rematch, right? In the story, the assassin already knocked him out earlier in the office, like a half hour ago. And so it's exciting to see them sort of come back together, and that it does feel like the assassin knows, just in the way he's sort of portraying it, that he knows this is going to be a fight. And when the kitchen staff leave, this is going to be a fight, even though he knows he's up to the challenge. It's going to be serious.
And it was interesting because, I mean, I think they go, the way that I read it is the assassin goes into the fight ready for hand-to-hand combat, because that's what Rama is bringing. And the assassin knows he beat him last time.
Yeah.
And he was able to take Rama out. And then as the fight progresses, it becomes clear that Rama is just not going to quit and is going to take him down. And that's where I felt like, now I'm going to prove myself as a villain, and I'm going to pull the knives out in a fist fight and turn it into something that, I'm now going to have the upper hand, because I don't want to lose because I'm a villain. And I found that to be a really interesting turn, and the way that Rama had to then adapt. And man, he got slashed so many times. I'm like, how is this man still standing? Like that gash on his back that was just pumping blood out. It was brutal. But
it is the same. In terms of a callback to the last movie, it is the unspoken sort of spiritual sequel to the sequence with Mad Dog and the brothers, where he said, or it's Mad Dog and is it Mad Dog and
Well, it's Andy.
Rama in the first movie, where he says, I put away the guns, right? Like, I want to.
Yeah, it's Mad Dog when he's fighting one of the other, like the head of the cops, whatever his name was.
Right. And he actually says, like, I want to fight you because that's the essentially honor of the fighter kind of a spirit. And that's what this
and he's like, it's more fun this way. Yeah.
More fun. Right. So I thought that was really great. And then obviously the resolution of this giant kitchen fight is pretty satisfying too, when he takes one of the karambits and is able to finish the job.
Yeah, boy, does he. Yeah.
So good. But then it just kind of ends, right? We've gotten rid of all the baddies, and he goes in, and we have the final, like the sort of finale of the story, which is that I don't know that necessarily the truth comes out, because even when Uko dies, he doesn't know everything.
No, but what I found really gratifying in the way that it ends is, Uko doesn't trust anybody. Bejo shoots Rama in the shoulder, and but then Uko takes this shotgun and kills Reza and kills Bejo, and then starts shooting at Rama behind the couch, and Rama only is able to get out of there because he throws one of these karambits at him and then jumps over and kind of stabs him again. But then he holds him, like, as Uko dies, like, he sits there, and it's like there had been this relationship that had evolved between these two characters, which was really interesting. And he kind of stayed with him as he died, which I thought was actually pretty interesting, before then he gets up and heads out of the building. So yeah, it was an intriguing way to end this, leading to that final, we've already talked about it, but that final conversation we don't get to hear between Rama and the son, Godo's son.
Yes, which again, I think just a pitch perfect way to end this in the film.
Yeah, that's it. It's a thrill ride. It's a long film. I mean, 2.5 hours, definitely longer than the first film, but it doesn't necessarily feel long. It just feels exhilarating. And the story, I've read some people saying, it has a story, but the story is convoluted, or it feels like too much story for the sort of film that they're doing. But I didn't feel that at all, and I'm not exactly sure that perspective. I guess some people look at it like they just want the action again or something. But I enjoyed the twists and turns of fighting the complexities of these different elements in the Jakartan gang warfare. I mean, did it play that way for you? Did you have issues with the story feeling like it's too much?
Anything that I was confused about in the story has largely been cleared up thanks to our conversation, but I wrote off that it's not in my native language, and I was confused about names, and I needed to sit down and really think about it. Part of that is because the movie moves really fast. And so, I feel like this is a movie that is made better on rewatch because you can kind of keep up. You know what's coming. It makes more sense. Like that scene in the beginning, I had not made a connection that Goto was the same guy that was sitting in the office, in Bangwan's office, drinking tea early in the film, having that conversation about Beja by the time I saw them at their tete-a-tete at the end, like near the end of the movie where Bangwan was. So knowing that they had a relationship makes a difference in the way Bangwan makes his choices. It makes a difference in the way their relationship, the father and son relationship, works for Uko. So that I took responsibility for that. And now that we've talked about it, I've watched it twice, essentially. I think the world of this movie. I actually think you could take out all the martial arts stuff and amp it up with some more relationship stuff, but the story itself and the performances and the actors, I think, holds up still as a great crime film, as a great sort of crime procedural sort of thing. And you could like, it doesn't need to be strictly an Indonesian martial arts movie to be a great movie. Like, there's enough here to satisfy both sides for me.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot to that. And I was comparing it with like Infernal Affairs and The Departed because of the nature of kind of undercover cops and that element and everything. And while that film has a lot more, or those films have a lot more twists and turns because there's undercover people on both sides and you're getting a really interesting they're searching, trying to figure out who's the undercover person. Like, there are interesting elements there that make that kind of story thread really interesting. But this one, I think it still has a really interesting journey as we're following this cop who's trying to basically work to help stop corruption, and kind of keeps finding everybody's kind of corrupt, and leading to that end where I think he kind of walks away from it all and just wants to go back to his family after being stuck in this mess for years, and just is really looking to, I mean, his whole motivation, yes, he is down with kind of the corruption in their system, but really was doing it to protect his family. And here at the end, he's just like, I've gone through everything I need to go through. Seriously, I'm done. I just want to be with my family now. And I don't know, I find it to be the way that it ends. I mean, we don't get to see him reuniting with his family. We don't get that, but I did still feel a sense of closure for him as a character in this world.
I compare it also favorably to Heat, right? Like, there is that sort of epic structure of criminal relationships. And so I came out of my first viewing of this thinking, well, I should watch Heat again.
Yeah.
Less physical fighting, much more gunplay, but it has that same sort of spirit.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good comparison too.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, we'll be right back, but first, our credits.
The next reel is a production of True Story FM, engineering by Andy Nelson, music by Alex Grohl, Oriel Novella, and Eli Catlin. Andy usually finds all the stats for the awards and numbers at the-numbers.com, boxofficemojo.com, imdb.com, and wikipedia.org. Find the show at truestory.fm, and if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show. Andy, are we going to get the Raid 3?
There had been talk about it for a long time. Evans had been saying he was going to do a third one for quite a long time. He was talking about it. And actually, the way that he talked about it, which is really interesting, it really would have kind of been a film like The Bourne Ultimatum. He said it actually takes place 2 hours before the end of the Raid 2.
Whoa.
Which really piques my curiosity as to what he was actually thinking of doing there. But that's kind of what he was wanting to do. Later, he ended up saying he's taking a break from martial arts movies for a while before he gets to it. Then even later than that, he said it's not happening anytime soon. I have ideas in my head, but nothing's written. Maybe 2018 or 2019. And then later he said he doesn't think he's going to go forward with it. He feels like the franchise ended, and he attributes a lot of that to the fact that he moved back to the UK. And he said that was kind of the closing chapter on the franchise. And, quote, "We ended the story pretty neatly, I feel, in part 2. I'm aware there's an interest for it, so never say never, but it's unlikely to happen anytime soon," end quote.
I think that's okay.
I do too.
I think that's fine. I don't need another one. I don't need another Raid. I think that ended well.
I don't either, but I am really curious about a story that takes place 2 hours before the end of this film. Like, what would that story be? Like, the fact that it's not necessarily a sequel per se really piques my curiosity. But again, if we never get it, I'm okay with that.
Well, it reminds me of, again, to bring up Heat, that Michael Mann felt like there was a story to tell and wrote a novel.
A prequel novel, yeah.
A prequel novel, right? Like to share more story that he wanted to tell in that universe. I think that's actually interesting. I'm not saying I'd want to read the Raid book, but I am curious, like you, what the story would be. So, okay, did it win any awards? How to do it award season?
Did well for itself. I mean, it certainly was something that people noticed, and I think that's, it attributes to what Evans was doing and how he crafted the story. It ended up having 11 wins with 16 other nominations. At the Indonesian Movie Actor Awards, Arifin Putra, who played Uko, won Best Supporting Actor, and Donny Alamsaya was nominated for Supporting Actor, but lost to Arifin. It also was nominated for Favorite Film, but lost to Di Balik 98. Over at the Jackie Chan International Action Film Week Awards, Julia Estelle won Best New Actor. She was Hammer Girl. And at the Maya Awards, it won the International Achievement Award for the Equator Film Expo, whatever that is. It also won Best Special Effects, Best Editing, Best Cinematography, and Arifin Putra won Best Supporting Actor. And then it also won Best DVD Collection. Julia Estelle was nominated for Memorable Short Appearance, which is an interesting category, but lost to Norman R. Akuen in We Are Moluccans. It was nominated for Makeup and Hairstyling, but lost to the film Killers. Same thing with Sound Design. And Original Score was nominated, but lost to We Are Moluccans. Same thing with Feature Film, lost to We Are Moluccans. And Oka Antara was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, but lost to Arifin Putra.
Julia Estelle is also in the movie Headshot with Iko Uwais, and now I want to watch it more than anything else because it's the only other one that's available in the iTunes store right now that I could just push play. It looks really good. So, all right. How to do at the box office.
Well, with the success of the first film, Evans did get a boost in the budget for this second film, $4.5 million, or just under $4.9 million in today's dollars. The movie premiered at Sundance January 21st, 2014, before getting its limited domestic release March 28th, 2014, opposite Noah and Sabotage. It didn't do as well as the first film, interestingly, despite ending up on more screens, 954 in its third week, where it hit 12th in the box office. Still, it did do well, earning $2.6 million domestically and $3.9 million internationally, for a total gross of $7.1 million in today's dollars. That lands the film with an adjusted profit per finishment of just under $15,000 and lands Indonesia with a pair of action films to be proud of.
I think they can be proud of a lot of stuff, including these movies. Food, spicy food,
yes.
Rivers.
There's plenty of things to be proud of, not just this movie.
Fish. Yes. So much stuff. Antiquities. Yeah. But also high on the list is a pair of raid films. So that's awesome. I'm so glad we talked about these movies. What a great excuse to see the second film. Makes me very, very happy that we got these on the list.
Yeah, I honestly was surprised to find out that you hadn't seen the second one. So I'm thrilled that you now had a chance to watch it. And certainly it's a pair of films worth revisiting and just kind of going down that road again with Gareth Evans and his crazy action.
For sure.
Well, we'll be right back for our ratings, but first, here's the trailer for next week's movie, kicking off our exploration of the Twilight Saga. Some people think we're crazy for jumping into this mess, but we are going to do it. And we're starting with 2008's Twilight, directed by Catherine Hardwicke.
You're impossibly fast and strong. You gotta give me some answers.
I'd rather hear your theories.
I have considered radioactive spiders and kryptonite.
It's all superhero stuff, right? What if I'm not the hero? What if I'm the bad guy?
I know what you are. Your skin is pale white and ice cold. You don't go out into the sunlight.
Say it out loud. Say it.
Vampire.
Are you afraid?
No. This isn't real. This kind of stuff just doesn't exist.
It does in my world. I just want to try one thing. Don't know how long I've waited for you.
What is going on?
Security guard at the mill got killed by some kind of animal.
An animal?
My family, we're different from others of our kind. You brought a snack.
What, now he's coming after me?
The hunt is his obsession. He's never gonna stop.
I'd rather die than to stay away from you.
He's got unparalleled senses, absolutely lethal.
I'll do whatever it takes to make you safe again.
You're faster than the others, but not stronger. I'm strong enough to kill you.
You are my life now.
All right, Andy, let's talk about Letterboxd, Andy. Letterboxd.com is our favorite social network for movie lovers, and we love it and live on it. And you can find us individually, Soda Creek Film for Andy, and I'm just Pete Wright. But you can find us together at letterboxd.com/thenextreel, and that's our page. Our what's it called? It's our platinum profile poo-poo page. What's it called? It's called something.
I don't think that's
they have a word for it. I don't even know, but it's fantastic. And so you should go there and follow us, and follow us all equally. That's great. But if you love it, if you love Letterboxd, and you find that you want to support the fantastic team that makes this service and get rid of ads on your own profile, you can do that at thenextreel.com/letterboxd. It'll take you right to the page where you can register yourself for a pro or patron account yourself and save 20%. Works for renewals as well. Okay, Andy, how are you going to do this? Please tell me it's a 5-star movie for you.
I still get mired in some of the story, sorting out like kind of the all of the stuff that's going on with Rama toward the end. So I'm still 4.5 with this one, like I am with the last one.
Oh my God!
I know I'm the worst with my quibbles and complaining with things, but that's where I sit with this one.
Extraordinary quibble. Extraordinary quibble.
I know I'm the worst.
I am a 5-star with this movie. And the big question that I left last week, having never seen The Raid 2, was, would my experience with The Raid 2 cause me to remove stars from The Raid because it wasn't good? I'm not going to actually remove stars from The Raid. They're both 5-star movies. This is a pair of 5-star hardcore action movies that I love. I just love these movies. So bring them on.
That's awesome. Well, don't forget, everybody, check out thenextreel.com/letterboxd. You can get your patron or pro membership. And as Pete said, it works for renewals as well. And speaking of memberships, we also have a membership. If you would like to learn more about it, you can go to thenextreel.com/membership, and you can sign up where you get early access to the episodes. We get a pre-show chat, you get a post-show chat on our episodes. You get bonus episodes. We have bonus episodes dropping all the time. In fact, last month's member bonus episode, we looked at Gremlins 2, and who knows what we're going to look at for November, but we're always throwing those out there. So members get all sorts of extra content, including extra channels in our Discord community. So check it out. We'd love to have you. Like I said, you can learn more at thenextreel.com/membership. So what did you think about The Raid 2? We would love to know. Hop into the Show Talk channel over in our Discord community where we will be talking about the movie this week.
When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Letterboxd giveth, Andrew.
As Letterboxd always doeth.
So we went to the bottom of the barrel, I think.
Oh, we did.
This week. Because we're very happy with the movie, with quibbles in some cases.
Yeah, sometimes it's fun to read.
So
the opposite side of the fence.
I have one that's not trying to be funny. Can I read my not trying to be funny one?
Sure.
All right. This is from Hedgehog fans. It's a 0.5 star. It says, "This is not good. Gone is the charm and simple brutality of the first. In its place is a lackluster plot that feels complicated and devoid of reasons to give a toss. The ambition is immense and truly commendable. The cinematography is trying very hard and feels nearly as kinetically driven as the first, but without the confinement of the apartment block setting, much of the thrill is lost. Plot-wise, our protagonist makes no progress on getting revenge on his brother's death, and neither does he gather the required evidence for the police to arrest the mob. If it was meant to be commentary, it simply irritated me as a viewer and was narratively unsatisfying." That last paragraph, I think, is interesting because we did talk about that Andy was assassinated early in the movie, like very first sort of sequence.
First thing, yeah.
And that doesn't seem to resolve. Does it resolve for you? That sort of, did you need it to resolve?
I think it does, but in a way where, I mean, it's not like we get to see Rama take down Bejo himself to avenge his brother's death or anything like that.
Right.
But we do see him in this situation where he's taking down the whole gang. He takes down, the police commissioner, or not the commissioner, but the head of the cops, Reza, has been killed by Uko. And then, like, Rama steps away from all of it. So, I don't know. For me, I guess it felt like there was this realization toward the end of the film that this is this never-ending cycle. I mean, as soon as he's taken down this entire gang, a whole other gang shows up, and they're all fresh and ready to go.
So many
gangs.
Like,
there's really no way out of any of this. And as we said, Bunawar is the good cop, but also seems like he has some shady approach to the way that he's dealing with things. And so it seems like, I don't know, the way that I kind of take it at the end of the whole thing is Rama's just like, and that's his line, like, I'm finished. Like, where is any of this ever going to lead? Like, it's not ever going to go anywhere. And so he's probably going to go back to his wife and, open up a sandwich shop or something. Like, I feel like he's just so completely done with this world. That's the way
Please open a sandwich shop. You need this sandwich shop. I totally agree with you. For me, I guess there was stuff that it wasn't said explicitly, but for me, it would just continued his rage on the bad people. He was torn up in it, and he saw it through to the extent that he needed to see it through. I felt like him covered in blood at the end and cuts and just broken parts of him was enough to count as making progress on getting revenge on his brother's death. It was fine. I didn't need it to be said.
Yeah.
So anyway, half star. I get that. I get how that could be unsatisfying for some. It was not unsatisfying for me.
Yeah. Well, I have a 1 star by Glenn Heath Jr., who just has this to say: like getting kicked in the nuts for 150 minutes and being asked to gleefully revel in the sadism being perpetuated. You can have it.
I will take it.
Well, and I think it speaks to our conversation in our pre-show chat that we had about violence in film and how, there are some people just, it's not about the choreography, the operatic elements of it. It's just about violence. And a lot of people just, it's too much. And so, I definitely get it because there is a lot of violence in this film. So I certainly can see that perspective for some people.
Thanks, Letterboxd. You're the best. It is hard to believe we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
Oh, you're telling me. Producing this show week after week is so much fun, but it does require a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you, and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
The Originals page at thenextreel.com/originals links to the source material from all of our adapted film discussions. Purchasing through our links support the show at no extra cost to you.
In Season 12, the focus was big franchises and series. We covered both Paddington films, adapted from the beloved children's book character created by Michael Bond.
Oh, I love those films so much.
Hugh Grant is perfect.
For our Pitch Perfect series, the first film was adapted from Mickey Rapkin's nonfiction book about collegiate a cappella competitions.
It's like a short story of my life, literally. I lived college a cappella.
Sing it, brother.
I lived college a cappella.
I didn't mean literally.
You know who you're talking to, right? The Twilight Saga dominated the season with 5 films adapted from Stephenie Meyer's vampire romance novels, Twilight, New Moon, Eclipse, and the 2 Breaking Dawn parts.
Dominated with awkward romance and nonsense logic is more like it.
That too.
Another Thin Man brought us back to Dashiell Hammett's only Thin Man sequel based on other Hammett material, The Farewell Murder, that wasn't just based on the characters from the first film.
We talked about Trainspotting and its sequel, T2 Trainspotting, adapted from Irvine Welsh's novels.
I hate the sequel's name.
I do too.
And the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy adapted from J.R.R. Tolkien's epic fantasy series.
Love these.
Extended editions all the way, baby.
Plus, all the Mission Impossible films based on the 1960s TV series.
And we've still got at least one more to go.
Members got to hear us chat about The Hustler and The Color of Money, adapted from Walter Tevis's books.
Get all of these books and more at our Originals page, thenextreel.com/originals.
Start your next read from the movies we've covered at thenextreel.com/originals.